think the most traumatic thing that has ever happened to me is that time this creep tried to, um, I'll just explain from the start. I was at Walmart with my mom, and I really wanted to go buy some LOL dolls, but she was in line, so she couldn't go with me. I begged her to let me go by myself, because you ain't so smart when you're 8. She let me reluctantly. I just want to say in advance that I don't blame her one bit for what happened. She's a good woman with a kind soul, and trusted me enough to go by myself. She didn't make the same mistake again. I went to the toy section and was looking around for those LOL dolls when this guy, maybe in his mid-20s, asked from a distance if I was looking for Barbies and told me the aisle they were in. I was a little suspicious. I grew up hearing things on the news all the time since New Orleans isn't exactly the safest city, so I politely declined and went to where my toys were. I was choosing which one I wanted to get, taking my sweet time, when I felt something graze my butt. I didn't think anything of it because I didn't know the other roll of butts then, and I didn't see anything, so assumed it was just my imagination. It happened again moments later, and I heard footsteps this time. I was starting to freak out internally, but my little dumb self just kept looking. The next time, this guy didn't just slap my butt again. He came up to me and grabbed me a bit and started slowly lifting my skirt. I was at least wise enough to push him away and run as fast as I could to my mom. I didn't know what sex was, though, so I was only a little shaken. When they started pressuring me for answers on what the guy looked like and stuff, is when I really started crying. I should mention I hate being yelled at. At this time, the police had already came and were interrogating me, but I couldn't remember a thing. I felt like I was in trouble, and just felt like my whole world was spinning. I've always been a good girl, so I wasn't used to being yelled at all. My dad came to the scene and started yelling at the suspect they were interviewing. I begged him to stop because I wasn't sure if this was the right guy, and he seemed innocent, but matched the description I gave. He was taken away, and that's the last I heard of him. I hope it was the right guy. I'm a 23-year-old female and live on my own. I just moved out to the area for school and went to my local Walmart to gather supplies for cleaning. As I walked in, I took note of an older man near the entrance that I briefly made contact with and nodded at and just kept walking. I looked at folders for a bit and then made my way towards the electronics section at the back to look for a charger. I was making my way through the aisles on the way down, looking at the fall decorations. Lots of them were geared towards kids, so I just glanced at them quickly and turned around to leave. The same man was there. I didn't hear him walking into the aisle, and was folding/inspecting some paper plates with childish Halloween designs on them for kids. I thought that it was a little strange, but brushed it off thinking he had grandkids. I left and made my way to the electronics section where they kept chargers behind locked glass doors. I'm there for about 7 to 8 minutes, and the same old man shows up. At this point, I'm pretty far from where I last saw him, and I see in the reflection of the glass that he's checking out my ass as he walks by. I brush it off, because I'm used to men making quick glances like that in public, and left it at that. He's looking at the display behind me at the other side, goes to leave, and then this is where it's creepy. He stands right behind me and starts aggressively eyeing me up and down while licking his lips, paying particular attention to my backside and my legs. He's basically undressing me with his eyes. At this point, he was giving off massive creep vibes, and I started shaking with adrenaline. I was alone in the aisle with him, and was afraid he would try to grab me. I stayed calm despite my throat feeling like it had a ball in it, and wait for him to leave. He does. Then I go to a random aisle nearby electronics, but in the general part of the store. I noticed there were two men behind the electronics counter and wanted to stay near them if something went wrong. I waited a few minutes, just standing there to see if he showed up. I wanted to confirm if he was following me or not. Sure enough, 5 minutes later there he was. I caught him quite literally speed walking down the main walkway, looking down each aisle, as if frantically looking for me. He stopped dead, saw me notice him, and then promptly scurried off. I went to the electronics section and informed them I was being followed and was not comfortable, and asked if there was security. They don't have any, just theft prevention, and they offered to check me out there or accompany me to finish shopping. They were very kind, and I took them up on their offer to get my cleaning supplies nearby. As we turned together, the same guy was standing further away, staring. He literally just increased the radius he was using to follow me, and was watching from the front by the registers now. I get my stuff, check out, and then weave through all of the clothing sections to leave from a different section than the one I originally entered in and saw him from. I didn't see him at all this whole time. I got to my car. I promptly drove to my new place, but stopped halfway at a random neighborhood. I pulled over and pretended that was my house to see if anyone tailed me, as I didn't want this guy finding out where I lived, and then drove home when I didn't see anyone. I may be overreacting, but this is a new area to me, and I've never had someone be quite that creepy and persistent in following me. I've done things on my own plenty of times and never had an issue. This all happened in the middle of the day at like 3 p.m. too. I was wearing loose clothing and just wanted to make a quick trip in and out. I have no idea what could have happened if I didn't notice, or what his intentions might have been. I can't imagine they were good. Maybe he would have followed me to my new place. Who knows? Either way, the whole encounter was scary. He had no clue I saw his reflection and the nasty expression on his face. Just stay aware, guys, and watch yourselves. This happened in November of 2014. I went to Walmart to buy groceries while my 16-year-old daughter was attending her homecoming dance. I tried to do my grocery shopping to coincide with her 11 p.m. pickup. All at once, I realized it was about 5 to 11, and I was still standing in line to get checked out. About that time, one of their customer service supervisors walked by me, and I motioned to her, explaining I had to pick up my daughter, and if she could hold my cart, I'd come back and check out as soon as I picked my daughter up. She agreed and had someone take my cart to the cooler, and told me to tell them at service desk when I got back. So off I go to pick my daughter up. I arrived back at Walmart at about 11:15 p.m. My daughter came inside with me, and as we were coming into the store, a man about 50-something walked over in front, just past me, and peered down the front of my daughter's strapless pink formal, which from a couple hours of teenage booping around dancing had become looser, and mentioned what he could do with her, and she happens to be well endowed. He had a female companion with him when he walked in. I could see him and her out of the corner of my eye. I don't know if this was his girlfriend or what her relation to him was, but she watched and heard him say those things, and didn't do a thing about it. I felt like I was in a stupor. Like, did this just happen? For a split second, I was stunned that anyone would have the audacity to walk up and say this to my daughter right in front of me. Her mom, walking right beside her. I became completely enraged and stepped between his leering eyes and my daughter. He asked her another inappropriate question, starting with his today. After stepping in front of him and putting myself between him and my daughter, I asked him if today was a good day for him to die. Honestly, I was running on pure rage and adrenaline, which probably gave me more guts than brains in that moment. He glared at me and tried to walk in tighter and intimidate me. I told him to get away, and he finally walked back over to who he was with, but continued to glare at me as they went on inside Walmart ahead of us. I absolutely couldn't believe this had actually transpired. My daughter was in tears and scared beyond all reason. I took her straight back to the women's department and had her put on a sweat jacket, zip it up, and paid for it in line with my groceries. If I'd have really thought about it and had not been running on adrenaline and still having the shock factor going on in hindsight, I should have left the store, called the police, and gone straight home. At the same time, the thought crossed my mind, he might have followed us to the car, and then what? I think if she had been alone, regardless what she was wearing, he still would have approached her. If someone is this brazen inside a public store, what is he capable of if on a dark, isolated place? The whole situation chills me to the bone. I think the only reason he walked away was because I stood up to him and didn't flinch. To have walked up to my daughter past me on her left and stand so close to her and look down the front of her dress and say what he said to her is unbelievable. I never thought. I just reacted with pure rage that he would dare to do what he did. I never again went to Walmart that late at night again, and have warned my daughters to always be aware of their surroundings, not be carelessly talking on their cell phones, and to always be aware of their surroundings coming and going.